Today we're uncovering 5 pro design tips that guided Rosemary Verey's work at Barnsley House. Barnsley House is located in the beautiful English countryside west of London in the Cotswolds. The house itself was built in 1697 using locally quarried Cotswold stone. Rosemary Verey's father-in-law bought the property in 1939. The house was given to Rosemary Verey's husband David in 1951, and they moved in with their family of 4 children on March 4th. When Rosemary Verey moved into Barnsley House, she really didn't know a lot about gardening, but she would go on to become one of England's most renowned garden designers. For decades, the garden at Barnsley House has inspired both amateur enthusiasts and seasoned professionals alike. But what makes this garden so special? Rosemary Verey is a completely self-taught gardener, making her the perfect example for us home gardeners on how we can learn to make beautiful gardens. Her books on gardening are filled with great tips on how home gardeners can design beautiful gardens. Today we're uncovering 5 pro design tips that guided Rosemary Verey's work at Barnsley House. Tip number 1 is to visit other gardens, and to visit those gardens during different seasons of the year. Rosemary Verey advocated being a keen observer of gardens throughout the year. This practice goes beyond just casual visits. It's about developing a deeper understanding of how gardens evolve through the seasons. Rosemary Verey encouraged gardeners at all levels to visit gardens regularly, taking time to observe and to document what they saw. Gardens, much like living artwork, transform dramatically through different seasons. A space filled with spring blooms will look completely different when it's dressed in autumn colors, or when it's revealing its winter structure. One of her famous quotes is that a garden in the winter is the absolute test of a true gardener. Verey's own designs at Barnsley House were often inspired by the gardens that she visited. Her famous laburnum walk, for instance, was influenced by a similar feature that she saw at Bodnant Garden in North Wales. And her famous decorative vegetable garden was inspired from the French gardens that she visited. These examples illustrate how observing other gardens can spark creativity in your own designs. This practice of regular garden visits serves a couple of purposes. It helps you gather ideas for your own space, but it also trains your eye to appreciate the subtle designs and details and to understand the different elements that you can combine to create a cohesive garden design. And over time, you're likely to find that your garden literacy improves, making you a more confident and creative gardener. Verey also recommended keeping a notebook of the things that you see in other gardens that inspire you. Different plant combinations, different color schemes, different structures. They all will form the vocabulary of your own personal garden design, and you can reference these notebooks in the future to come up with different ideas when you're looking for them. The second tip that Rosemary Verey has for us is to read gardening books. Rosemary Verey remarked that her gardening reached a turning point when she began collecting and studying old gardening books. This practice wasn't merely about collecting old books. It was about tapping into centuries of horticulture wisdom and design inspiration. Verey often referenced the books that were written in the same period of history when Barnsley House was built to understand how people gardened during that period of time. 2 of her not garden designs at Barnsley House came from old books. One was inspired by a 1616 English translation by Gervase Markham, while the other, called The True Lover's Knot, came from Stephen Blake's 1664 book called The Complete Gardener's Practice. When I visited the garden, the not garden designs were a little bit difficult for me to discern versus the pictures in the books because the hedges were a bit overgrown. But I did look up the design for the True Lover's Knot on the Internet Archives, and you can see it here. I think it's incredibly interesting that she created features in her garden that match the time in history when the house was built. We're fortunate today to have access to literally thousands of gardening books online, and I'm constantly looking for gardening books that offer inspiration. Reading gardening books provides practical knowledge about plant care and garden maintenance. It also introduces you to a wide range of plant species and cultivars, and it offers insights into design principles and garden styles from different periods and different cultures. Books spark our imaginations, suggesting new ways to approach your own garden space. And I feel like delving into gardening books, you're not just gaining knowledge, but you're connecting with the rich horticulture tradition that spans centuries. Every book that you read adds another layer of your understanding of gardens and gardening design, and it enhances your ability to create a beautiful, meaningful space for yourself. That brings us to tip number 3, including vertical accents in your garden design. In one of her books, Rosemary Verey said she learned the importance of vertical accents from her friend Peter Coates, which she especially used when designing her vegetable garden. But you can see vertical accents throughout the entire space at Barnsley House. Rosemary Verey used a lot of standard-shaped shrubs and underplanted them with bulbs and plants. She punctuated the potager garden with arbors and small trees, and she allowed vines to gracefully climb the garden walls and the house itself. These vertical elements served a few purposes. They add visual interest. They create a sense of enclosure and make the garden feel more intimate. And they also make modest spaces feel actually larger and more dynamic. In one of her books, she takes note of how the different heights of plants grow from the beginning of the garden season throughout the garden season. And she talks about how the earliest flowers are low, the snowdrops and aconites and crocus, and how they're succeeded by taller varieties of plants like the daffodils and tulips and wallflowers and forget-me-nots. And then she talks about the shrubs and how they start to fill out with their foliage, adding even more height, and then the trees themselves. She referred to this as a vertical panorama in space and time, which I thought was really unique. In our own gardens, vertical elements can help screen unsightly views or create privacy. It can also be used to define different garden rooms. A well-placed arch or a pergola can frame a view and create a sense of journey in our gardens. In vegetable gardens, vertical structure maximizes not only growing space, but it helps to make the garden more beautiful by providing architectural interest. So think about how these vertical elements can help enhance our own garden designs. And these vertical elements aren't limited to plants. Garden art and sculptures and obelisks, all of these things can help provide year-round vertical interest. Even practical elements like bird houses and bird feeders can contribute to the vertical dimension in our gardens. That brings us to tip number 4, which is to create long vistas. Rosemary Verey was influenced by the teachings of the professional garden designer, Percy Kane, who firmly believed in the power of long vistas to give a garden a sense of depth, intrigue, and grandeur. At Barnsley House, this principle is beautifully demonstrated in a number of spaces, but none better than the vista stretching from the temple to the fountain. And vistas can be adapted to gardens of all sizes. The key is to create a sense of perspective and to draw the eye towards a focal point. In smaller spaces, this might be achieved through carefully framing a view down a narrow path, or by aligning design elements to create the illusion of greater depth. When planning a vista, think about the journey and the destination. A path leading to your focal point, it should be inviting, perhaps with plantings that change or unfold as you move through the space. The focal point itself could be anything: a piece of garden art, a distinctive plant, a water feature. Even a well-placed bench invites somebody to come and sit. By incorporating vistas into your garden design, you're inviting garden visitors to pause, to look, and to move through your garden with intention. Whether it's a grand sweep across a large lawn or just a modest view down a narrow urban path, a well-designed vista can transform how you interact with and perceive your garden space. And that brings us to the 5th tip from Rosemary Verey in Barnsley House. And tip number 5 is to design your garden with your house in mind. Rosemary Verey believed that a garden was an extension of the house itself. And she emphasized the importance of viewing the garden from the house's doors and windows, making sure that the design flowed seamlessly from the house itself to the outdoors. This approach creates a harmonious relationship between the indoor and outdoor spaces, making your garden feel like a natural extension of your home. I was able to take a couple of photographs from the 2nd floor of Barnsley House, looking down onto the main lawn. And I love this view. You can see the shapes of the perennial flower beds and how the structure of the garden holds the entire design together. One way to apply this design principle is to spend some time observing your garden from different vantage points within your house. Take a look out of your windows, what you see most frequently. Step out onto the patio. Look at the views from upstairs rooms as well. These observations will help you identify different sight lines and areas, maybe that you want to place something, and put attention to your design. Think about how the garden can enhance your experience when you're inside of your house. A well-placed tree or a shrub can frame a view. A colorful border can bring to life something that looked dull from inside. Consider how the changing seasons also affect your views. A deciduous tree might provide summer shade and privacy, then open up to allow light during the wintertime. By designing your garden with the house in mind, you're creating a more cohesive and livable space that enhances your daily life. You're ensuring that your garden brings joy not just when you're in it, but also when you're looking at it from your house. This approach turns every window into a frame for a living work of art, connecting you with nature, even when you're inside. I think that Rosemary Verey and the beautiful gardens that she created at Barnsley House have so many great lessons to teach us home gardeners. I'd love to know how you feel about these 5 garden design tips that we shared today from Barnsley House. Let me know in the comments if you've used any of these yourself. And that's it for this video, friends. And I'll see you in the next one.
Anywhere, feel like